Britain shall spend 1,500 millions on arms in the next 5 years. Not directed against any one country, said the Chancellor, but because of our vast responsibilities in all parts of the world, and as a measure for the preservation of peace. This means no remission in taxation, but it gives security. Even more than that, it will reduce the figures of unemployment. More ships mean more men at work, building, supplying them with every class of material needed on a modern man of war. In addition to 3 new battleships, Britain will have 7 new cruisers. There will be 2 more aircraft carriers, and that will mean an increase in personnel, for Britain's manpower is still far below that of many other nations. The Navy's air arm will be developed. We already have the Queen Bee, the bombing plane that flies without a pilot. Increases here mean more men at work. Aircraft factories will be going at full pressure, and security will bring prosperity. Pictures from the Basque Republic of the holy city of Guernica, scene of the most terrible air raid our modern history yet can boast. Hundreds were killed here, men, women, and children. 4,000 bombs were dropped out of a blue sky into a hell that raged unchecked for 5 murderous hours. This was a city, and these were homes like yours. Another prize has fallen to the invading hosts of Nippon in China, Tsingtao, seaport in the Shantung province. Built by the ex-Kaiser and subsequently lost by Germany, Tsingtao now passes from the control of China to Germany's friend Japan. And for the better defense of Britain's interests nearby, it is comforting to be able to show these first pictures of the newly opened Singapore naval base, recently a swamp, now a £20 million dock. Native troops are part of the defense scheme along the coast. Before the opening ceremony, the shore defenses were tested in a series of maneuvers. Land, sea, and sky forces all engaged. Everything was conducted as it would be in wartime, even staff work. Defending planes overhead searched the seas and skies for enemy craft in the height of the monsoon season. So we fly above the greatest naval dockyard in the world, called King George VI Graving Dock. Singapore becomes our Gibraltar in the Far East. Together with our Navy, it becomes Britain's guarantee of security for the empire. More than 500,000 men. 5 million more reservists can be called to the colors fully trained. A system of conscription for every able-bodied youth has given her one of the finest armies the world has ever known. But today, manpower is not enough. France has a natural wall of defense in the southwest, the Pyrenees. On the east lie the Alps, another perfect barrier against the enemies of France, manned also by fighting mountaineers. To the north and west, the sea offers her protection. To the northeast, the unprotected countryside once offered an open gate to the invader, till France built her mysterious wall of steel and concrete. It was a hidden battle line of fortresses, the Maginot Line. You might walk for miles above this wall of death underground and never know that you were not strolling on some peaceful farmland. You might remember, perhaps, how these fields were laid waste in 1914. You might think how futile would be their little locks and bolts if ever war should come again. Beneath that pasture land and the fields of ripening grain, what would happen? That is the Maginot Line. 12 million cubic feet of earth have been dug out to build this subterranean barrier. It runs for nearly 600 miles from Dunkirk to Switzerland. It costs £60 million. Its 14,000 big gun emplacements lie concealed every few hundred yards. They guard against the modern tank with 6-inch steel pickets driven into reinforced concrete. By special permission, we were allowed here to photograph. 200,000 troops specially trained man the Maginot Line by day and night. They are more than soldiers. They are technicians, well-paid, skilled mechanics. They live like moles, and they must be prepared in emergency to remain below the ground for a year. has its own electric troop-carrying train. Ammunition travels by monorail. It is a vast city underneath the earth, self-supporting, entirely independent of the rest of the world for at least 12 months. Its kitchens are run on the most modern lines. Its stores hold thousands of tons of frozen meat and 500 million gallons of red wine. Probably no enemy will ever dare to face the unspeakable hidden death of the Maginot Line. But if he does... From 200 feet below the earth, those whose duty it is to man the main guns will come up, through walls of earth and steel and concrete, into the gun turrets built so strong that direct hits could not shatter them. The guns can fire in all directions, yet the gunners who man them will never see outside. Their fire is controlled from hidden observation points elsewhere. These guns are always ready. With the Pyrenees and the Alps and the sea, they have made of France an island. That is the Maginot Line, checkmate to invasion. Britain's great ally is prepared. Watch for the next issue at this theater, The Defense of France. Our cameraman went to Millbank to have a look at the type of shelter intended for issue to householders as protection against air raids. At present, the suggestion is that householders with an income of less than £5 a week would be provided with one of these shelters free. They have an emergency exit in case the normal exit should become blocked. And at Shoebury-Ness, on the government high-explosive testing range, engineers built a neat little row of houses and put a 500-pound bomb outside the front door. Nearby were two of the household-type shelters. Our cameramen preferred to be buried before the explosion rather than after. Now wait for the bang. That's what it looked like to the camera 50 yards away. It made a mess of the cottages, but the little shelters seemed to be none the worse. At last, a gas mask has been evolved which Home Office authorities are satisfied is suitable protection for very young babies. Feet are left free to kick, bellows supplied of purified air, and a big, non-inflammable window enables baby to see mother's reassuring smile. From Australia, too, we have an ARP story. Fire and ambulance brigades of Brisbane combined in a realistic rehearsal to fight the menace that we all pray will never come. As if it were not difficult enough to keep alive anyway, we must live in a state of preparedness against being blown to blazes by our neighbors. However, Australia knows it is well to be prepared. They call this the Battle of Duxford. Royal Air Force planes staged a demonstration of what would happen should a fleet of enemy bombers cross our coastline. The Spitfire fighters took off. In the air was a fleet of Venom bombers traveling at 5 miles a minute. The Spitfires sighted the bombers and raced towards them at nearly 400 miles an hour. It was only a mock battle, but experts say that the bombers were theoretically destroyed in less than half a minute. The first 30,000 of Britain's young militiamen has joined the colours, the Empire's new army of youth. Stoughton Barracks in Guildford, the War Minister, Mr. Horbelisher, arrived to welcome them, and he told them they were the guests of the nation. First days at a new school or a new job always seem a bit strange, but these recruits to the Queen's Royal Regiment have a good heart for their 6 months' service. They look forward to plenty of fresh air and plenty of sport in addition to military training. Dear Mother, it's lovely here, and the Sergeant kisses me good night. Let us hope that these stern measures may have done much to preserve the peace we all desire. So we'll say good luck and thank you to the youth on the big parade. Bombs are no respecters of persons. All suffer alike, old and young, rich and poor. And the job of stretcher bearer or first aid party is a real man's job. Today, Britain is in urgent need of men stretcher bearers and first aid parties. And they are wanted immediately for training. We appeal also to women car drivers. If you can drive a car, you can be trained to drive a light ambulance. For both these vital services, men and women are asked to register with the local council. The need is urgent. Enroll now. Has the British Empire been so well prepared to defend its interests as it is in this tragic autumn of 1939? The world knows that Britain has not sought war. We believe faithfully that posterity will acquit this generation of these islands of any desire for war. Yet because the threat of conflict has been held against us so long, we have spent many months building up our great resources with tremendous organization. In the simple, moving words of the Prime Minister, we are ready. Soon the posters in the streets began to tell their story of yet another war. Soon the newspapers. The Polish ambassador called upon our Prime Minister. Britain intended to fulfill her pledge. For them, the war had already started. With a potential army estimated at 6 million, with a great military tradition, Poland was defending her freedom. Meanwhile, evacuation of children from the danger zones of England and Scotland carried on. Great credit reflects upon teachers and all those who have helped in this great work. So many cities today are childless. The children have taken laughter with them. But though there must be heartbreak at each parting, it is immeasurably better that they should have a greater chance of safety.